I would like to refer to this message and my journey in comparison with a dying star. You have the stars in the universe, and throughout their lifetime, they gather particles, different material, and information that make them what they are. And they come a point in time in their life where they die. But in that death, in that destruction, it's not the end for them. To me, it's actually the beginning, because they then explode and they release that information and those particles back into the universe to make it possible for 1 million more stars to be formed. And for me, that was the perfect way to explain my life. I think we as people, we're like the stars, where it's so easy for us to show the beauty that we possess on the surface, but there's something deeper going on inside of us that is a little more complicated, a little more difficult to explain. So for me, it looked good on the surface. I had a good job. I was making good money. I built my first house when I was 21 years old. So on the surface, to the average person, it looked like everything was all right with me, but there was something deeper going on inside where I still had a lot of questions for myself, whether or not I was satisfied with me. And that curiosity, that concern grew more and more every day, but I couldn't answer it. And there were moments where I would be at staff events, parties, where I'm supposed to be enjoying myself, but I always find these moments to just zone out in my mind and trying to figure things out. And this picture was one of those moments where I'm supposed to be okay here, having fun, but there's so much going on in my head, I just can't enjoy myself as much anymore. And that continued to grow to the point where I don't have the answers, so I'm going to try and ignore this. So I started to drink a lot. I would drink every single day of my life, to the point where I would wake up in the mornings and I couldn't tell if I was sober or intoxicated from the night before. It was so constant. And I would just continue to do that. It wasn't affecting my work at the time, so still to the public, they couldn't really see what was going on with me. But this feeling continued to grow regardless of me trying to ignore it this way. This concern was still growing. And at that moment, I decided I need to figure out, some other way to answer this question. I don't know if is it this job that I'm in, do I need to start over? What do I need to do? Because this is not helping. So I decided at that point in time that I'm going to leave my position. I was an engineer at the time. I was at the company for 7 years. And I decided I'm going to leave this position. I'm going to wipe my slate clean. I'm going to start over. I don't have the answer yet, but I'm going to start over. I'm going to figure it out. And I resigned from my position. I had some money saved, so I could manage the bills a bit till I figured out myself. So I was still drinking. I have more time now to abuse this habit. And now my family and my friends, they start to get a little more concerned about me, because they could see instances before where I was in this state, but now it was more frequent, and now I don't have a job. I have bills still, but I don't have a job. So, they're putting this additional pressure on me now, trying to help me figure this out. So I start to push everybody away. And then when everybody gives me that space, now I start to feel alone, because now I don't have anybody. But I decided to build on that isolation that I created, and I decided I don't want to be in my house as much anymore, so every night I would drive to the beach and I would just stargaze. I would have my alcohol, but I would just stargaze, because I felt like at that point, my answers would come from above. My answers would come some way, I don't know how, but if I keep my head up, maybe the answers would just come to me. But then, one night that caught up to me as well. I was driving home, fell asleep behind the wheel, and I got into an accident. Now, fortunately, nobody was injured. I wasn't injured, but at that moment, I knew I need to fix this situation. I now have a criminal charge to face with the police. This car doesn't belong to me. I borrowed this from a friend. So now I have to answer to them. I still have all this other stuff going on, but I have this new problem. There were many incidents before this that happened that I should have, figured it out then, but they weren't convincing enough. But at this point in time, I knew I have to figure it out now. So that passed. I dealt with the situation with the police and everything. And I'm at home now, trying to figure it out still. I don't know what's going to happen. And a friend of mine came by one day and said, what are you going to do in it? I don't know. He said, well, you used to like to plant and do stuff like that. Why you don't make that consume your time? So at the time when I was in my previous job, I would find little moments and I would plant stuff in the yard. I just was fascinated with the idea of things growing, and I just used to love that. So I said, all right, let me see if that helps. See if I can escape that way. So I decided I was going to build a greenhouse in my backyard. So I started to prepare the land, but at this point I have no idea how to build a greenhouse. I have no carpentry experience. I don't know anything about getting this job done, but I need to take the first step because nothing else is working at this point in time. So I started to prepare the space that I was going to use to build this greenhouse, and I went to the local hardware store and I bought the material that I needed to start. And it's all guessing at this point. I'm going to figure it out somehow. Maybe about 6 or 7 days it took for me to build it. And that was about 3 years ago. It's still standing, so I think I did a good job. So that was the beginning. And then at the time when I used to like to plant, it wasn't necessarily food. It was more flowers and stuff I was more concerned about. Like Mother's Day, I'd probably plant some sunflowers, give to the ladies in my family and stuff like that, because I figured that was easier to do than grow food. I dabbled a bit in some food, but not as heavy. So I started to plant. And at that point, I wanted to start to share that experience as well. So I created a social media page, surrounding this new farmer personality that I had. And I wanted to share that with people, because at this point, I got a little bit heavy-handed. So I planted more than I could manage. So I decided to take to social media and just ask a few people if they would be interested in, getting some plants or buying some. And I got good feedback from people. They were very interested in what I was doing. And at the same time, I was also sharing personal information, just explaining to people, I'm going through a few things. This is how I'm dealing with it. I'm trying to fix myself. So I'm trying to build a relationship with people as well. And then I started to get some requests, did you think about growing vegetables or anything like that? And I didn't have it in mind, but I got those requests more often now. So I said, okay, well, I'll take a chance. I'll grow some stuff. So I started to grow more of the easier crops that I could manage at the time. I had different veg growing. And then again, I got a bit heavy-handed and I ran out of space now. So here I have this greenhouse. It's full to capacity. I need more space, so I decided now to tap into the carpentry skill a little bit more, and I want to expand a bit. So I got some scrap material from a friend, and I started constructing some raised boxes, raised beds in my yard space, filling my yard space completely with these additional places for planting. at that point, I'm still sharing all of this on the media, showing this experience. And a friend of mine, she came by one day because she saw what I was doing, and she said to me, would I be interested in going into schools and talking to students about the growing, the carpentry stuff. Now, I'm trying to fix myself, so I don't think I have the capability now to go and talk to students and educate them. But at the same time, I'm also saying I need to take this chance, because maybe that's the next step for me, is to offer this experience to someone else. But I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to figure it out. Clicker not working there. Okay, there we go. So we go into the school, and it's the best experience that I ever had in my life. You have these innocent souls, these children that they're not concerned with my past. They're not concerned with who I am even that day. They're just concerned about what am I going to talk about? Why am I here? So if I can give them the best part of me, something that will help them in the future, then I think I would have done my job. And it was, like I said, it was the best experience I ever had, just working with these students. And from there, I shared that on social media as well, and I started to get feedback from other schools interested in me working with their students and doing something similar. Getting a little bit nervous now, because I have this service that I never intended to offer. Everybody's wanting that part of me, but I take the chance anyway. I go to the schools, I talk with them, and at that moment I decided I wanted to shift my focus now. I realized that it was important for me to heal myself, but I think that's a journey that I'm still going to be on in a few years to come. But here, these children, they need this opportunity for someone to come and share with them what I feel is some of the most important things in life: growing your own food, being more conscious about your health, both spiritually and physically. But I just want to share with them how I feel, why I did it, and get them not to make the mistakes I made with farming. That's how I intended to achieve that. So I'm working with these students in different schools, and around that same time, a friend of mine that we went to school together, we would like each other post on social media. We would just comment about maybe one day we should meet up and exchange plants, seeds, or whatever. And we met one day, and he said to me, I have some property that, if you were interested, we could use it together and maybe do something on a bigger scale. At that time, I needed the space too, because I can't even walk in my yard anymore. There's boxes everywhere, plants everywhere. So I said, sure, let's do this. And immediately, I think about 2 years ago now, we went to the property, we started developing it, building places that we could store plants. We started growing immediately. But at that moment, I knew that was my dying star moment, because I think that whole journey before that was me collecting this information I needed, the materials I needed, the experience I needed to now expand and become more than I ever was. And this new property now the focus would be mainly on that. Was we're going to use this property, we're going to grow like we did before, but now the focus should be on providing for people just as much as we provide for ourselves, with information, with food, just a different idea on a lifestyle, because I felt like that was a gap that was getting a lot bigger. Is here, my generation and the ones before us, we saw a lot more of this in the community, or we saw a lot more in general, but this new generation, they're not seeing it as much. So I think now this is the opportunity that we need to bridge this gap. So that became the main focus of this new property, was providing for the public as much as we provide for ourselves. What I would say is how can I say it? It doesn't have to be as dramatic as my beginning. I don't think it has to be for anybody to get to this point. You know, some people are already on this journey, but for those who aren't on this journey as yet, I think it's just important to recognize that dying star moment in your life where you've gotten all of this information, you've gotten all of this experience, and now that you exploded onto the scene, you know, once you recognize that moment, will you be satisfied with just using it and healing yourself with it? Or would you want to heal the world with it? Blessings. Thank you.